Hi, and thank you so much for joining me for my presentation, Opening Your Office Doors via Smartphone. I'm Dr. Maggie Broderick, and I'm very excited to talk to you about a lot of experiences I've had with this, a lot of things I've tried out, and some things that I hope can help you with your own students, some tips and strategies and things like that, no matter where you may find yourself working with our students. So I like this little idea that we online instructors have, just like the Genie, phenomenal cosmic power, itty bitty living space. Think about it just a bit. We really have an amazing ability with technology to reach our students. But we're sort of trapped in the little box, just like Genie with his lamp, where we really have to only use the screen in front of us, and it's not like interacting with a human being as if we were in a regular classroom. We're in an online classroom. And so we really have an amazing power to reach them, but yet it is difficult to really get through in an interpersonal way and to help our students when they really need our help. So what do? Well, I learned about point of need learning a while back, and it just totally was a light bulb for me. I thought about my own students' needs and some things that happened. I've taught undergraduate students, master's level, I'm a dissertation chair, I have worked with students at all levels, including K through 12. And thinking about the online environment in particular, it's incredibly efficient and so convenient, but it can seem very impersonal. And a lot of studies have been done on this. I'm sure you've experienced when your students have a closed door, meaning they sort of are trying very hard, but then something seems to get in their way and they feel like they can't break through that barrier. That's when we can be there to help them as much as we can. And the technology can work in our favor if we think about it a little bit. Think about when your students maybe just needed a quick hot fix, just a quick answer, just a clarification. Something was a little vague in the directions or they misinterpreted something. Maybe they were doing some group work. Maybe they were trying to figure out how to meet with group members and are having an issue with that. And before it spirals out of control and becomes some kind of difficult drama and hard situation for everybody involved, let's try to address that right away. And of course, we have students who have emergencies, illness, etc. They are adults with busy lives. That's why they chose online education in the first place. Most importantly, it's really hard in the online environment to create and maintain that rapport, because we can't reach through that screen. We can't actually look at someone's facial expressions and help them in person. And so we have to find some ways to create and maintain that rapport because they do lose motivation. And they often need our reassurance. They need our support. This is very, very common with new online students. And it also happens with all kinds of students. Some who have had an issue switching to a new kind of class, or perhaps they're older and not as good with technology as a younger student might be, and they just need a little extra reassurance and support. There are all kinds of reasons why that might be the case. It's just harder to do sometimes in an online learning environment. So that's why when I first heard about point of need learning, I got really excited. And the funny thing about it is that I had not heard much about it since, which made me a little sad. That's why I wanted to do this presentation. Back in 2015 or so, I learned about point of need learning from a librarian. It's just in a regular professional development session where we were talking about students in an online learning environment. And in the idea of the librarian in the library, they wanted it to be very accessible so that the student wouldn't get frustrated. If the student's looking for this, it's at the point of need. It's exactly when they're looking for it. It's embedded in the course. Here's where it is. Here's how you find help. And you click right on it, and you're not frustrated trying to open tens of thousands of things to find what you need. You just click on it, and there it is. And so there is some work on this, but really not a lot. I wrote a blog post back in 2015 because I was so excited about it. And I did not invent point of need learning, but I still can't find the original work that the librarian shared with me because I had quoted it in my piece that I wrote in 2015, and then it sort of disappeared from the internet and was very difficult to find. But I did find some similar work from James and Moore. James is an author of Point of Work Learning, which is essentially the same thing. When you're working on something, or when you need something within your learning and work process, to have it readily accessible and you just get it and it's there for you without having to search everywhere for it, it really decreases anxiety and decreases frustration. And then you can picture it, instead of being all frustrated and spending all evening or all day feeling really bad about the work and maybe waking up the next morning and feeling in a panic and contacting the professor via email. If there's a way to decrease that anxiety and frustration by having things ready at the point of need and point of work, we should try to do our best to do that. But as I'll say in a bit, there are parameters and there are some boundaries that we need to make when we do this. So think about it today. Um, Probably a lot of you were around before the 21st century, but I know we're getting pretty far into it now in 2019. But everything today is instant. You order on Amazon, boom, it comes to you within a day or two. My children are teenagers and they order on Amazon Teen. It goes to me on my phone. I say, oh, yes, you can have this. And then again, same thing. Even they are able to do that with one quick, Mom, is this okay? And it's all done digitally and instantly. So many things. If you want to order a pizza, just go on your app, click. If you need an Uber, anything like this, all very, very instant. There's very little wait time in these types of transactions these days. And so students have very strong expectations about immediacy. They really feel like if my pizza can come to me and if my, my Amazon can come to me, then everything else should come to me too. And there is a generational shift in this. Millennials and younger, of course, have more of an expectation perhaps than older people, but it's not just generational. Some people have a very, very strong need for reassurance and will become very anxious and concerned if they're not reassured right away. And we can guide them and help them. They're adult learners, but they also need reassurance. And so, like James says, 2018, the point of work is where the motivation resides. And so if we can address these issues for immediacy, for reassurance, for making sure that the students are able to continue at the point of need and point of work, then they will maintain motivation. Because if we think about it, online learning is very isolating and individualized. We are in front of a computer by ourselves doing the work. And if we lose that engagement and motivation, and if we start to get anxious, it really can spiral out of control and go badly. So what do we do? Well, handy dandy smartphone is very helpful for us. Of course, I do most of my work on the computer, but I go out and about. I do all kinds of things in my life. And I try to open up my virtual office doors. Years ago, I was a little shocked when a person, fellow colleague said, hey, I just allow my students to text me or call me. Now I'm not as shocked, but I've found that I need to have boundaries, parameters, very clear expectations and procedures for how this is done. So that sort of incredibly open door, of course, is too much, but if we allow for some of it, it can work. So there are some workarounds and some strategies that can work for you. I do really open my door for my students to call and text me, depending on the situation. So for example, doctoral students, usually master's students, maybe not as much undergrads. But what I would do for the other students is more of a workaround, and I'll talk about those in a minute. It depends on the personality and the needs of the student. Each one's unique. Some don't need any of this reassurance and support and they blast through. Some need lots. I've had a wide variety of situations. Some really like to text and others like to email and others like to call. They vary, just like our personalities vary. I had a doctoral student who needed a lot of reassurance. He's now a doctor. He did great, but he needed to text me quite often just to kind of feel like he's doing the right thing, to get through the process and to say, hey, is this right? And I say, yes, it is. We keep going. We didn't talk on the phone that much. We didn't email that much, but he felt texting was the way to go. So think about your students and how that works for them as individuals. But absolutely, the key is setting your own boundaries and parameters for this. So a few ways we can do it. What if you don't want to give out, your phone number? Totally understandable. I do for my doctoral students. I will occasionally for my master's students on an individual basis if needed, but we can use Google Voice to use a phone number that's not our own. And you could just sign up and have the students call that number or text that number instead of your personal number. And that way it's not enmeshed in your personal life. They don't have your number. It's a great solution, makes it much easier. So if you have a student that you would like to have, text and call, um, Google Voice is a good choice. Zoom is a wonderful app. It will run on your smartphone. I use it all the time. And it's not expensive to get a professional account, but you can also get a personal account for free. And I find that Zoom for office hours is wonderful. If you just have a group of students who sort of need to talk with you, maybe it's a group work issue or something like that. If you can set up a Zoom meeting, it works very, very well to just sort of hash out and have a more personal space for a meeting. There are two apps that a lot of K through 12 teachers use and parents use, Remind and WhatsApp. Remind is just from the teacher, the instructor. So you would be able to send text reminders to your students via this Remind app. It works really well. Like if there's a deadline and you know they're going to be late on their assignments, you say, hey, please remember this is due on this night. It's just for a quick text reminder. WhatsApp is a conversational text-based app where you can have that on your phone and everybody could talk. So if you needed to hash out some kind of issue with group work or with some question about something, people could choose to log into a WhatsApp. And again, that way they wouldn't all be texting your own personal phone right on your texts and driving you crazy. At Ashford, Civitas. I know everybody's told everyone Civitas, but let me echo, Civitas is amazing. So I've mentioned my doctoral and master's students, but for undergrads, Civitas has worked wonders. I use it for master's students as well. But with Civitas, I send out a lot of sort of groups of messages. So if a student is doing really well, there's a group of those students, I send them, hey, keep doing what you're doing. Nice message every other week or so. And if there's maybe a middle group that's just doing pretty well, hey, is there anything you need? You're doing pretty well. And then if there's maybe a group of students, there's always variety, maybe a group of students who is not doing quite so well, then I will send them a Civitas message saying, here are some support tools. I've noticed that students who log in earlier in the week have success with this. Things like that. If I send those very friendly messages on Civitas, I find a wonderful response from the undergraduates especially, saying, hey, thanks for checking in. Nobody's ever checking in on me. Maybe it's their first time doing an online course. Maybe they're a busy, parent who's also working full time. And this is easy for them to just drop this by mistake and say, oops, I've forgotten to turn in my work. Just a quick nudge on Civitas in a friendly way goes a really long way. And then when I send that Civitas message, it goes right to my email and I can open that on my smartphone. And then if I need them, if there's a severe issue, like I did have someone with something terrible happen to them, I say, okay, then we can text, we can take this to the next level. And so it kind of works together. You can use Civitas to kind of get to them and then say, okay, we need to talk. Why don't we call? Why don't we text? And things like that. Sometimes just emailing on your smartphone is a good choice. I've been on some road trips lately and I don't want to bring a whole laptop, but if you have your phone set up so that you can do the email right on your smartphone, that can work really well. And I find that I just have to have parameters. For example, if it's a longer response, I'll wait till I'm home. But if it's just a quick, hey, that sounds good, thumbs up, or yes, that assignment's due Tuesday, then I just can do that easily on my phone once it's set up. And if you have a Google login and your phone is set up with your passwords with the Google login, then it will remember the logins for you. So it's much, much quicker to just quickly give them that immediate feedback, that point of need, if they're emailing you and you're not waiting to the next day. Another way I do that is by setting the bookmark logins on my phone. So it's all set up for success. So I just click, oh, there's an email from an Ashford student. Oh, okay, they just need to know if this is, if it's okay if they turn it in one day late or something like that. And then I just answer really quickly. So I really hope that this has helped to open the box a little bit for you and get you out of that Genie's magic lamp and realize even if you're sort of in the grocery store in line or on a road trip or something like that, your smartphone has a lot of power, but we really have to have those boundaries, have to have those parameters for how we use it. And hopefully that will open up a whole new world of communication that will help you with your students. Thanks so much. I really appreciate you attending, and I hope you have a wonderful rest of the conference. Bye.